Hey, what is up? It is week 2, really lesson 2, not so much week 2 since we're going to do this over 12 weeks. You'll probably notice this is not my house. If you're observant, then right now you're going, this is not my house. I'm actually in Las Vegas right now. I'm trying to find the best lighting. I feel very stripy. Maybe if I turn a little bit, it'll be less shadowy. I don't know. I feel like I'm coming in and out of the shadows like Gloria Stefan. What a reference. Gloria Stefan reference? Fantastic. But I'm in Las Vegas. I'd love to know where you're watching from. So hit me up in the comments. Where are you watching from? What's going on where you are? Like maybe you're in Scottsdale, Arizona. That's always the example I use. Scottsdale, Arizona, or you're in Tucson, Arizona. You could be in Gilbert, Arizona. Amy's checking in from Cincinnati. The lighting looks better. It does look better now. So it took me a little while to figure it out. But I'm pumped about today. I'm so glad we're able to do it. I'm kind of in the middle of speaking season. So yesterday I was in LA, outside of LA at an event. And then I've got some stuff today. And then I've got some stuff tomorrow in Vegas. And then I head back home like at 1 a.m. People watching from Katy, Texas and Nashville. So it's great to see everybody. I'm pumped that you're here. I hope that you've been working on everything. Here's my first question of the day. Did you do the homework from the first lesson? Did you pick your 3 actions? Throw them in the comments. If you did, you can shorthand it. You can say 100 words. You can say mile. Feel free to throw it in a shorthand. I'm curious if you actually picked your 3 and have been working on them bit by bit. Let me know how it's going. Plus, remember, participation is how you win prizes. The more you participate in the group, the more you comment, the more you encourage each other, the more you post, okay, hey, here's my action tracker. That's how you win prizes. Speaking of prizes, let's give one away right now. Today's prize is the Lego Volkswagen camper van. That's the prize I get to give away. And this set is brand new. I don't even own it yet. Jenny, my wife, will sometimes tease me and be like, I think you give away Lego sets just so that you can buy that Lego set. And she's right. She's 100% right. That is what I do. But I don't even have this one yet. But somebody is going to win that. We picked somebody who's been participating a lot. And the winner is Brian Grover. I think it's Brian Grover. It's Bryn, but I think it's Brian or Bryn. It says phonetically, like it feels phonetically to me like Brian, but it's Grover. Brian Grover, you won. MC will follow up with you to get your address to make sure you get that. And I can't wait to see you put together that awesome VW Lego set. So back to the minor actions. I wanted to share the ones that I picked. I picked read 10 pages of a success book, walk, run, or bike a mile per day, and go quiet for 10 minutes a day. Those are the 3 I picked. 10 pages of success book, walk, run, or bike a mile a day, and go quiet for 10 minutes a day. Now, I do the quiet one a few different ways. Sometimes I walk around the neighborhood. Sometimes I sit on the back porch in the morning after a run. Sometimes I just turn off the radio when I'm driving somewhere. Sometimes I sit on a plane with noise-canceling headphones for 10 minutes. Some people might say, this is what's interesting. Some people might go, well, no, to do the quiet one, you have to be sitting in a dark room, isolated from the world, hidden away from the noise of modern man. That's not me. I found that the more rules and stipulations I put on my actions, the less likely I am to do them. I think that's true. The more rules you add to a goal, the more fragile it becomes. That's true of any goal. So as you do your daily actions, avoid the temptation to get too rigid or you won't make it to the end of the year. So be flexible with yourself. Be flexible with what you're working on. I think sometimes as goal setters, it's tempting to add too many rules, and then the whole thing falls apart. Now, the first lesson was a blast, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. I also love the interaction we had in our first VIP Backstage Access. I've fallen in love with group coaching this last year. It's the first time I've really done it, and I'm so glad so many of you came along with me on the ride for this course. If you'd like to sign up, there's still time. You can visit acup.me/backstage and join us. Individual coaching is like $2,000 an hour, and it's $30 for group coaching. Now I'm going to change that next year because a business coach is really challenging me on how I price my time. Like I have people that coach me and they're really challenging me on how I price my time. But for this fall, that's what group coaching is going to cost. Again, the link is acuff.me/backstage. Now, the last bit of housekeeping is that we're going to do these every 2 or 3 weeks or so. And so the only time we're going to have like a 3-week gap, I believe, is Thanksgiving. But I'm excited because it gives you a chance to actually work on the stuff we're talking about. The challenge of a 5-day challenge is it's so much content so quickly that you barely have time to breathe. But now with kind of a longer time frame, we've got more space. So I want to jump right in to lesson 2 because we've got a lot to cover. I'm going to say that every week. We have a lot to cover. I guarantee you'll never walk away from one of my challenges and go, oh, there just wasn't enough content. Like I just feel like he just showed up and he riffed. I'm not going to do that. Like I'm always going to bring so much content. So let's get started. Okay. I want to start with a statement. Most goals are optimistic lies. It's true. Most goals are optimistic lies. Now, I hate to step on so many toes right out of the gate, but it's true. Most goals that we make are optimistic lies. We believe we will do them. We do, and we believe that, and then we declare our intentions with gusto. We will run. We will write a book. We will build a business. We will lose the weight. We will eat better. We will sleep more, and we make 1,000 other noble things that we announce. Now, I once had a counselor tell me that that's called living in verbal reality. And verbal reality is the belief that saying something makes it true. I loved that phrase, verbal reality. That one really stuck with me. It's been years since a counselor told me that, but I still think about that. And I believe it's a telltale sign that you're in the chaos zone. Remember the 4 zones from our first session? Remember? The chaos zone is when you have excellent ability. Your ability is fantastic, but you have inconsistent frequency. So there are bursts of greatness, just moments where it's great, but they're fleeting moments. You tap into your potential, but it's fleeting, and you never really get into your full potential. And that's the chaos zone. And this is, for instance, when you perfectly clean out one corner of your garage. Like it's immaculate. You go all in. You're like, I'm cleaning the whole garage. You do one corner. It's so beautiful. You could eat off the floor. You color-coded the drawers. You have a system within a system within a system. Your ability with that one corner was excellent. Unfortunately, your garage has more than one corner. It actually has 4. And you get so exhausted from your temporary sprint that much like the rabbit and the tortoise, and the hare and the rabbit and the tortoise and the turtle, I always confuse them. I like to say turtle and rabbit because tortoise and hare sounds very bougie to me. Tortoise and hare, like I should drinking tea. But much like the rabbit, you never really live up to your full potential. You never get to the rest of your garage. So 75%, maybe even 90% of your garage remains a mess, but one corner, spotless. This is like when you get inspired by a TEDx talk, or maybe you do a writing course and you decide to buckle down on your book. After not writing for a year, you create 20 pages in a single weekend. Your ability goes through the roof. You're excellent, and you declare this is the new norm. This is the new norm. I meet people all the time that tell me, I write all weekend, every weekend, or I write on Tuesdays, John. This is after they've written on one Tuesday. They declare, I write on Tuesdays. That's what I do. I write on Tuesdays. But then something funny happens. Life gets busy and you lose your spark. And you only write a little the next weekend and a little less the next weekend. And then 6 months later, you look up and you haven't touched those initial 20 pages in a long time. This is like when you join Orange Theory and you sign up for every class they'll let you in those first 2 weeks. I did that. You tell all your friends, I work out at 5 a.m. now, whatever. It's just what I do. It's who I am. And you've only done it for 3 days. But aren't declarations what we're supposed to do? Positive intent, declare to the universe and whatnot. But then work gets stressful. Distractions get sexy because they do. And it becomes a struggle to make it once a week. Never mind 4 times a week. Has something like that ever happened to you? Have you ever declared some bold intention and then not followed through? I need you to hit me up with a yes. Like, you should be yesing the heck out of the comments right now. You should be like, yes, because everyone has done that before. Everyone, especially high performers, high achievers that are in a goal setting course, have done that before. When we do that, you know where we are, right? We're in the chaos zone. Excellent ability, inconsistent frequency. To make our way out of it is simple. To make our way out is simple. We need to climb what I call the frequency ladder. That's what we need to do. We need to climb the frequency ladder. That's how we get to the practice zone or the momentum zone. You get more consistent with your actions. You make your actions more consistent. You do more reps related to your goal. The solution isn't to try harder. The solution is to try more often. Let me say that again because I'm talking fast. I'm in Vegas. Vegas moves pretty quickly. The solution to a lot of your goal challenges isn't to try harder with your teeth, white knuckle it. The solution is to try more often. And frequency is not a mystery. Frequency costs time. That's what frequency costs you. It costs you your time. Now, the fun thing is that when you figure that out, you can learn how to climb the ladder even faster. For example, a friend of mine is a pastor. He was having a difficult time giving the morning announcements each Sunday. So he got this new role, and his new role is he had to give the announcements every Sunday. And he wasn't a public speaker, and he was struggling with it. And so I asked him, how many times, like in a normal week, how many times will you practice the 10-minute micro speech? And he said, once a week. That's not bad, right? I mean, I think most people would probably practice once a week. But at that rate, it will take him 4 years to get 4 years of experience. That's just math. 52 Sundays, 52 practice sessions equals 1 year of experience. But what would happen if he practiced twice a week? What if he practiced 3 times a week? What if he practiced 4 times a week? He could get 4 years of experience in 1 year if he did that approach. He doesn't need a live audience to practice with. He's not a comedian who is doing audience interaction. He's not riffing on the announcements really and catching a moment. He's saying, hey, this Monday night, we're doing open enrollment for small groups. Here's the time, here's the date. He could get excellent practice by himself. And 4 reps would only cost him 40 minutes a week. Do you think that if he really wanted to get better at the announcements, he could find 40 extra minutes in his week? I do. And that's the same question I'd ask you. If you really want to tap into your full potential, it's going to require you learn how to focus. And focus is all about finding time to do the things that matter. That's what focus is. Focus is finding time for the things that matter. Now, the good news, there's some good news to all of this, because maybe right now, hopefully you're not feeling overwhelmed, but I always want to pull back and go, whoa, wait a second. There's good news. The good news is that time is the easiest factor to deal with when it comes to finishing goals. We've had the same calendar for more than 700 years. I Googled that. I didn't know that top of my mind. I looked that up. There are no new days or hours being invented. It's a fixed amount. Have you ever thought about that? You have the exact same calendar that your parents had, your grandparents had, your great-grandparents had. Now, we filled ours, we have, with a lot of things that they didn't have, which I think is why it feels like we have less time than they did. But the truth is, we still have the same 168 hours per week that they had. When we feel like we're having a hard time focusing or getting stuff done, what do? In those moments, what do? We turn to time management systems. There's no shortage of options either, right? There are 50,000 results for the phrase time management when you go to Amazon. Like if you go to Amazon, I went to Amazon, boop, 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 typed in time management, 50,000 results for books. I've tried a bunch of them myself. I bet you have too. Some were okay, some were complicated and terrible, some were, somewhere in between, but the end result was always the same. I'd be excellent for a little while, but eventually I'd fall right back into inconsistency and I'd give up, which landed me smack dab in the middle of the chaos zone. I've spent so much of my life in the chaos zone. Now, I wanted a simple, easy to use system that I could practice. I wanted a system that anyone could use, a system that didn't cost me 10 hours a week to manage. In fact, I wanted it to take less than 1% of my time all week to manage. So I created my own. only has 3 steps. 3 steps. Don't you love the idea of a system that only has 3 steps? I know I do. Here's what they are. Number 1, identify your big week wins. Identify your big week wins. Number 2, create an honest calendar. And number 3, learn all week. Those are the 3 steps. That's what we're going to spend the rest of the lesson discussing. This lesson is super practical. So if you're looking for tangible steps you can apply to the way you manage time immediately, you're in the right place. So let's jump right into step 1 and identify some big week wins. The problem with important work, whether it's professional or personal, like regardless of the type of goal, the problem is that it's often quiet. Important work is often quiet. It doesn't always call attention to itself. For example, let's say that your goal, because a lot of people picked that they were going to do the 1 mile. So let's say you had a running goal or a walking goal and you wanted to train for a 5K. The 1 mile you've committed to won't ever bother you. It won't knock on your front door. It won't barge into your office. It won't send you a notification on your phone. Hey, it's me. It's the mile. It's go time. You might not even notice you missed the goal until a week later or a month later. You look up and say, wait a second. Wait, wasn't I going to run more or write more or build my side hustle more? Goals won't find you. You have to find them. That's one of the reasons it's so easy to lose focus in the chaos zone. Goals are quiet. Distractions are loud. Our goals are quiet. They tend to be they whisper. Distractions are like, what? I'm in Vegas right now. This city is pure distraction. Like they have bright, neon, loud slot machines when you get off the plane. Like in the terminal, it's like, whoa. Distractions are loud. So I'll teach you how to deal with distractions in lesson 4. But for now, just know this. The odds are not currently stacked in your favor. Let's take Facebook, for instance. Facebook has 58,604 employees. Maybe 603 because whoever blew it last week when Facebook was down, that dude probably lost his job. So 58,603 employees. Do you know what the goal of each of those employees is? To distract you, to steal your time and attention. Now, it's ironic, I get that, to talk about Facebook while on Facebook, but it's still true. Facebook's goal is not to improve your life. It's not to connect you with old friends. It's not to teach you a new hobby. Its goal is to turn your time into advertising dollars. That's their business model. Is it any wonder you're so distracted? You're up against 58,603 employees. So the very first thing we're going to do is focus and make the most of our time. So we're going to do that by identifying some big week wins. What's a big week win? A big week win is any action that deserves a high five when finished. Any action that when it's done, you go, what? That was fantastic. It's anything that on a Sunday night, you'd look back and go, wow, I had a big week. A big week win is any action that would make you high five yourself at the end of the week. Here are a few of mine for one of my most recent weeks. Number 1, I worked 30 hours that week. Why is that a big week win for me? Because this is not going to surprise you. I tend to be a wee bit of a workaholic. I'm like a goldfish. I grow to the size of my container. My tendency is to not track my time, and I end up working 50 hours, 60 hours. So if I get to the end of the week and I not only tracked my time, but it only amounted to 30 hours of work, that's a big week win. Another big week win for me recently was I crushed the Asset Mark speech. That week, this particular week I'm talking about, the example week, if you will, I was headed to Colorado Springs to speak for a company called Asset Mark. Now, if I crushed that speech, it would mean the slides were amazing. I practiced the full speech live. I performed well and super served the client. Like that was why it was a big week win for me. Another one was I wrote Brendan Leonard podcast questions. I was on someone's podcast recently and they said, I don't like to prepare much for ahead of time because I want the conversation to feel natural. That is a lazy lie right there. It is. The truth is he didn't want to prepare and you could feel it, but he still wanted to look noble at the same time. Like it's so funny when we lie in a way that makes us also look good while we're doing it. I want it to be an organic conversation. No, you just didn't want to prepare. My podcast interviews go a lot better if I create a Word document with well thought out, well written questions. Now, we might go in different places based on some of the questions, but I want to have a sense of who the person is, what they've done, what they're into, what their book was about. And so that was a big week win for me. I wrote those questions. Another one that was small but still important was I signed up for a Labor Day Classic 10K. A few weeks ago, I ran the Labor Day Classic 10K. Do you know how I was able to do that? Because I signed up. That was a big week win. I had been saying for weeks, I'm going to do it. I'm going to sign up. I'm going to sign up. And then I didn't. And so finally one day I was like, you know what? I need to do this. I need to sign up for that. Running it was its own win later, but initially I had to do that win. I had to actually sign up. Another one was I responded to a podcast sponsor's email. There was an email I've been putting off, a sponsor question. I responded to it. Another one was I wrote some content for a secret project. I've got a few secret projects I'm working on, and I wrote some content. Another one was I did a 6-mile run. I was training for the half marathon that I ran last weekend. I did a 6-mile run. Now you'll notice something about that list. They're all different shapes and sizes, aren't they? Let's take work 30 hours, for instance. That will take me all week to accomplish. Signing up for the race took me 10 minutes. Crushing the Asset Mark speech took me 48 hours because I needed to fly to Colorado Springs and actually perform. That one involved airplanes and rental cars and clients and sound teams. Responding to the podcast email involved me and my inbox. There's not a specific filter you use to decide what gets added to your big week wins list. We're trying to keep this simple. And in step 3, we'll learn how to iterate as we go. All we're doing is asking the question, what do I want to win this week? What do I want to win this week? As I look ahead at the next 7 days, what do I want to win? What's the fastest, easiest way to figure that out? Your calendar. Every Sunday afternoon or Monday morning, I'm flexible. What did I say at the beginning? I don't want to have a ton of rules on a goal because then it gets fragile. So every Sunday afternoon or Monday morning, depending on how the week's going, I look at 2 things, my notebook, my calendars. I check my notebook to see if there are any big week wins I wrote down during the previous week. I might have been waiting for a friend at a coffee shop when I remembered, I need to send that client that proposal. So I'd write it down in my notebook, knowing that I would add it to my big week wins list later. So first, I check to see if there are any in my notebook. Have I been gathering things during the week? That's one of the ways you focus, by the way, is that when your brain goes, hey, there's this important thing we need to do, you put it on a list. And you go, hey, we're going to do that later. We're going to review that. We got that. I'll teach you some more about that in lesson 4. But the first thing I do is I look at my notebook. Are there any things that throughout the week, the previous week, I thought, you know what? This might be a big week win. When we meet, me and my brain, when we have our meeting on Sunday or Monday morning, let's review this list. Then I interview my small calendar. What's my small calendar? It's Google. I use the Google Calendar. Sometimes people are so disappointed by the simplicity of the tools I use. People ask me all the time, like, hey, what software do you use to write your books? And they hope I'm going to say, like, I use this software from Romania that helps you write books. It's called like Silvertron. But I use simple tools. And you can use any digital calendar you want. I use Google. And I review the next 2 weeks. Why only 2? Because if I have a 2-week head start on a big week win, I can accomplish nearly anything. If you have the kind of projects or goals where you can reasonably plan 4 weeks out or 4 months ahead of time, go for it. What I found works best for me is a 2-week cycle. I also find that with the pandemic, time is still kind of squirrely. 3 days is firm. 3 days is firm. 3 weeks is fuzzy. Like 3 days from now, I can tell, okay, I'm going to do this thing. 3 weeks, let's get a little buzzier. 3 months, fictional, dude. Pure fiction. I want my big week wins to be real things that I really need to do in the next week. I also find that if I zoom too far out, I end up creating a list of 100 big week wins and I overwhelm myself to the point that I don't do any of them. This happens. Have you ever done that? Where you go, okay, I'm going to be really detailed. And you look at a week and then you're like, I'm going to look at 2 weeks. And the next thing you know, you're like, 9 months from now, what time do I need to call that client? People do this all the time when people say to me, John, how do I find a publisher to publish my book? And I'll go, have you written the book yet? They go, no. Well, then do that step. Or they'll go like, how do I pick the right book cover for my book? And I'll go, have you written the book yet? And they go, no. You're dealing 9 months later. Like, do the right now. So I open up my Google Calendar and I ask it a couple questions. Questions like this. What meetings do I have? What do I need to do to win that meeting? Or I'll say, okay, you know what? What projects do I have? What projects are due? What do I need to do to win that project? Or what family commitments do I have? What do I need to do to make them awesome? Or what conflicts do I see in my schedule? There's some conflicts. Every week has conflicts. What can I do to fix them? Or is there something I can do this week that will make next week even easier? Like, how do I make next week even better by what I do this week? If you ask questions like that, you will inevitably, like this is going to happen, you're going to end up creating a list of actions. After I've interviewed my small calendar, I interview my big one. There might be a big goal I want to stay on top of by doing small actions consistently. It won't appear on a 2-week scan, but if I look at my finish calendar, I can see it on the horizon. Like it's this huge thing on the horizon. And I still want to get a big week win out of it by doing something that week. I've used the finish calendar for more than 10 years. One side is vertical, one side is horizontal, comes in dry erase or paper. I mount mine on foam board and I carry it with me to meetings like it's a boogie board. You can get one at finishcalendar.com. They're fantastic. It's one of my favorite tools. That and my phone are probably the two things I use just about every day. Now, for example, when I scan, like when I do a quick scan of the next 3 months, emphasis on quick, because again, I don't want to get lost in the overwhelming weeds. I can see that, okay, on November 22nd, I'm going to launch a holiday gift guide. Did you see the one we did last year? It was a PDF. It was beautifully designed with like 37 random gift ideas. A bunch of people bought gifts from it. It was so fun. I can recognize that that project is not in the next 2 weeks. It's further out. But what if I wrote down 2 or 3 things every week between now and then versus trying to come up on November 22nd with 37 things? That's a lot of pressure. I bet it would be easy if this week and next week and the week after I wrote down 2 or 3 things, 2 or 3 gift ideas that I think you guys would absolutely love. That's the approach I use for my Christmas gifts with my family too. Here's a bonus tip. Call it my 2-step approach to being awesome at Christmas gifts, because I'm not naturally awesome at Christmas gifts. I would say that a lot of what I teach, I don't feel naturally awesome at. I've learned it and I've learned how to get better. I think people are sometimes surprised. I'm not a naturally positive person. Like my personality isn't naturally positive. I'm pretty melancholy right out of the gate. I've said that to you guys before. I tend to lean counting crows in my personality, but I see the benefit. I see the power. I see the promise of being positive. So I work hard at it. The same with Christmas gifts. Here's my 2-step approach to Christmas gifts. Step number 1, listen. When your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, partner, kid, whoever mentions an item or experience they like, listen to that. When you're watching TV and they say, oh, I've always wanted one of those. When a friend gets something new and they say, that looks like a lot of fun. When they make an offhand comment in a store, listen. When something wears out or breaks down and they say, oh, these steak knives are killing me. They're so dull. Listen. People are giving you 1,000 Christmas ideas all year long. Let's not pretend you're going to collect them for 12 months, though. I don't know anybody in February who's like, 11 months from now, I need to remember to buy that gift. If that's you, awesome. I'm just not that detailed. What are you, superhuman? That's amazing. Here's what I'd say. Be real. It's October. What if for the next 6 weeks, next 7 weeks, you just listened to the people in your life as they mention gifts? And then step 2, write it down. You're going to forget. You will. Someone, probably Abraham Lincoln or Winston Churchill or Britney Spears, Free Britney, once said the shortest pencil is better than the longest memory. And they're right. When you hear a gift idea, write it down. I have a folder in my Evernote app called Jenny. Inside it are notes like new shirt from Merides, the one with the bread guy. I created that note on November 16th, 2019. Why? Because while we were eating at Merides, one of our favorite local bakeries in Franklin, Tennessee, where I live, she said, oh, I love that shirt. On November 25th, 2018, I wrote down Bobby Brown face cream because she was running out of Bobby Brown face cream and mentioned it while we were getting ready one morning. Also, heads up, guys, not the same Bobby Brown you're thinking of. Facial cream is not his prerogative, though there are a lot of tenderonis who love that makeup. And that is a full circle 80s, 90s moment I just did. Okay, bonus lesson over, but the point remains. If you'll take a quick look at your big calendar, you might see some big goals that you can take small steps on this week. which makes them a big week win. In an average week, I will end up with 10 to 20 big week wins that I want to accomplish. You don't have to do this next part, but it's really helped me. Once I've written them down in a notebook, like I've written them down, I'll transform them to, or transfer, not transform. I'm not like transforming them. That's weird. I'll transfer them to my mini whiteboard. You've seen me talk about this whiteboard forever. It's this tiny little whiteboard. It's from Quartet, and I love it. It sits on my desk. I don't travel with it. Otherwise, if I was home, I'd go, here's what it looks like. But you've seen me. I've talked about this thing 1,000 times. I love it because it's like Goldilocks. It's not too big. It's not too small. It's just right. I write down big week wins in the upper left-hand corner, the date range for the week, and then I list them out. On the far right side, I have a little vertical blue line, and I separate this little corner. It says next week. So that as I'm crossing off stuff that week, if something comes on, I'll go, oh yeah, next week I need to do this. And then everything I need to do is right there on the corner of my desk all week. If I had a huge whiteboard, I would end up brainstorming all my goals, all my tasks, all my actions, and I would probably get a little bit overwhelmed. So I like that it's small and it's right there in the corner of my desk. Now, if I don't finish something, I move it forward. I go, you know what? I didn't get to this. I'm going to move it forward the next week. And if I move something forward multiple weeks, I eventually ask myself, is this really a big week win? Is it really? Sometimes actions that look important at first glance like are not that important. And they'll sneak their way into my list, and I'll shuffle them week after week after week after week. And then all of a sudden I realize, wait a second, this thing isn't that important. I would say if you've moved something 4 or 5 weeks, you need to ask yourself, do I really want to do this? Is it really important? Because eventually you just get annoyed writing it again and again and again and breaking that promise to yourself. So that's the first step of the plan. Identify big week wins. So let's do a little on the spot homework. I'm going to give you 60 seconds. I don't have my stopwatch with me, so I'm going to use this. I've got a little timer on my phone. Every phone has a timer on it. I'm going to give you 60 seconds, which usually it's only 30. So we're going to set a 1-minute timer. And here's what we're going to do. I want you to identify one big week win for next week. Just one. It can be anything. What's something you could do next week that would make the week a win? That's it. Are you ready? I'm going to start my timer, and I'm going to give you a chance to go ahead and say, all right, this is something I could do. Could be anything. Could be something to sign up for. Could be an email you need to respond to. Could be writing something. You got 60 seconds. It's a Tuesday. So let's say it's Sunday. It's Sunday night. Imagine it's Sunday night, and you look at your schedule and you go, I'm so glad I did that. That was a big week win. 60 seconds. Ready, go. Boop, boop, boop. And done. Timer off. All right, perfect. All right, now typically I give myself 30 minutes each week to come up with my big week wins. So if right now you're like 60 seconds was not enough time, dude, I agree. That's a tough challenge. But I'll give myself about, 30 minutes to run through it and work on it and kind of work through the system. So feel free to, use the right amount of time that works for you. But this week, on Sunday or Monday morning, I want you to do the whole system. That's ultimately your homework. The second step of the system is create an honest calendar. I told you at the beginning of this lesson that most goals are optimistic lies. And even though I might have been thoughtful and deliberate about coming up with my big list of big week wins, unless I do this second step, my goals aren't true yet. I'm still in verbal reality. look at all the things I'm going to do. Oh, look at all the things. I've just got a list. Like just having the list isn't enough. High achievers don't have any trouble with that first step. We can all come up with massive lists of things we're going to do. It's this step, create an honest calendar, where things get a little tricky. It's not easy. It might not feel comfortable or fun at first, but I encourage you to push through because this is what's really going to help us climb the frequency ladder and out of the chaos zone. And we'll get into what? The practice zone and the momentum zone. In order to create what I call an honest calendar, I have to assign a time to each of the big week wins that I come up with. Did even hearing that sentence feel restrictive to you? Like, did it feel like, this feels a little tight? It used to make me shudder. Like I didn't want to be tied down by committing to actually doing the thing I said was so important. But I learned that the power of an honest calendar is really game changing. Like an honest calendar is really game changing. And I discovered it's one of the few tools. That's tough. I'd never put that in an audiobook. I read my own audiobooks. I'd never put that in an audiobook. It's one of the few tools that would actually help me tap into my full potential. So I got over my apprehension and gave it a try. So here's what it is. Here's how you do it. Take out your list of big week wins. For each action on it, go into your digital calendar and assign it a 30 or 60-minute chunk of time. And the third step is expect to hear a cacophony of broken soundtracks and excuses. Now, in most cases, the task itself isn't difficult. You're taking the sentence, run 1 mile, and then going to your Google Calendar and making a meeting on a Tuesday at 7 a.m. for 30 minutes that is titled Run 1 Mile. If you're anywhere near my age, you've scheduled meetings before at work, right? Everybody here, everybody should raise their hand. Have you ever scheduled a meeting at work and then here's the crazy thing, you showed up and you participated in that meeting at the time, at the date? Of course you did. If you've never worked in an office though, and you're a stay-at-home parent, you've scheduled carpools. You never kind of just hope your kid has a ride to places. Like you're deliberate, right? If you're a college student, you've scheduled classes. We all know how to schedule things. It's not complicated. But what is complicated, and this is where a lot of time management systems fail, is all these broken soundtracks and excuses that get loud the minute we try to do this exercise. Remember what a soundtrack is? A soundtrack is a repetitive thought, and thoughts turn into actions, which turn into results. When you learn something new, old soundtracks get loud. It's true. Let's not pretend that's not going to happen. It's going to happen. Instead, let's come up with a plan so that we can conquer the 4 loudest soundtracks before they even really get started. Broken soundtrack number 1, I don't control my schedule. I don't control my schedule. Maybe already in this lesson, you've been like, oh, this guy, he doesn't know. This John's crazy. I don't control my schedule. This is a fair bit of pushback. I work for myself, which is theoretically, a situation that gives me the ability to determine a lot of my schedule. I have clients, I have time commitments too, but I don't have a boss and I don't have a timesheet in the traditional sense. It would be easy to say, well, John, an honest calendar works for you because you're an entrepreneur and you have different freedom than I do. I think that's a fair point. That's an honest, good point. I do have a weirdly shaped life. I do. But recently, a friend of mine named Carey Nieuwhof really challenged me on this point. He has a great new book called At Your Best, where he talks about managing your energy levels, your time, and your priorities. And when he was on my podcast, I pushed back on him in the same way that maybe you're pushing back on me. I said, Carey, not everybody can control their schedule. Most people don't have that freedom. And he said, the problem is that when people hear a new idea, they tend to focus on the things they can't control versus the things they can control. That stopped me in my tracks because when someone offers me a new idea or approach to my life, my broken soundtracks are always focused on what I can't control. For instance, if someone says, you should be part of this weekly mastermind, my immediate response is, I can't because I travel too much for work. Now that's true. I don't necessarily control my travel time always, but what if instead I asked the question first? What if I said, what time does it meet? What days does it meet? What if instead I looked at my schedule and realized that even though I travel for work, most weeks I could make a 7 a.m. mastermind call, especially if it was virtual. Do you know how many speaking engagements I've had in the last 10 years that started at 7 a.m.? About 0. But my broken soundtrack of I don't control my schedule got loud instantly and shuts down the possibility of me doing the mastermind. So the first thing I would say is focus on what you can control, not what you can't control. Or simply put, don't let your excuses dictate your day. Don't let your excuses dictate your day. An excuse is just another name for a broken soundtrack. The real problem with the soundtrack, I don't control my schedule, is that it tends to turn into I don't control any of my schedule. Soundtracks always add other words. It's a subtle change, but it's a powerful one. You don't control any of the 168 hours in the week. You're 0 for 168. Dude, I don't believe that. That was the other thing I learned from Carey. He said, ask yourself how many hours of the week your boss requires you to be in a certain place, doing a certain thing at a certain time. He said, it's probably less than you think. And I guarantee that right now, for the majority of you, regardless of the job you have, your boss has not assigned exact actions for all 40 hours of the week. Maybe not. That's why I cheer when someone, like when I see someone studying in a toll booth. That's someone who has to be at a certain spot doing a certain thing at a certain time of day, but instead of scrolling Instagram on his or her phone in between cars, she's hustling. This activity will help you figure out which parts of your schedule you actually control. And I think it's going to be more than you think. The second broken soundtrack you might hear is broken soundtrack number 2. I don't know exactly how long it will take. This is a perfectionist soundtrack. You get your big week wins in your calendar and you immediately think, well, I've got these actions, I've got these big week wins, but how could I possibly figure out how long this will take? That's fair. Cool. Me either. But here's the thing. I'm not aiming for perfect. I'm aiming for planned. There's a difference between perfect and planned. I am terrible at estimating how long something is going to take. How could I not be? I spent years not paying attention to this kind of information. I didn't track my time or my actions or my goals. When I first started creating an honest calendar, my estimates on how long things would take were all over the place. You know what made me feel better about that? A woman named Corinne Crabtree. Corinne is a health and exercise entrepreneur. She runs an 8-figure business helping women with their health, but it didn't start off that way. She was raised by a single mom. She eloped out of high school, got a divorce. She didn't go to college. She has no formal business training. And yet she's built this amazing empire in Nashville, where I live, that's helped thousands and thousands of people around the world. I interviewed her on my podcast, and we were talking about the moment where she decided to take her side hustle from a hobby to a business. She had a significant incentive too. Her son, her only son, is autistic, and they wanted to send him to a private school in Nashville that was geared toward his exact needs. The only problem was that it was expensive, so she decided to go for it. One of the most important things she did was take control of her calendar. She got honest, and she started doing an exercise similar to this. I asked her, okay, at the end of the week, when you do a review of your calendar, how successful were you at actually doing the actions you planned in the amount of time you planned them? Can you guess what she said? A baller like Corinne? You think maybe she was 90%, maybe 80%, maybe 70%? Her answer was 30%. That's below an F if you were in school right now. She was only 30% successful. When I asked her why, she said, well, there are a ton of actions that took me twice as long to complete as I thought they would. And then there were a lot of other ones that took me half the time to complete that I thought they would. Over time, she said, I got better at that, but it took me a while. Corinne, an 8-figure entrepreneur, absolute CEO, phenomenal leader, scored a 30% for the weeks when she first started working on her calendar. I did too. You will too. Just because you don't know exactly how long it's going to take doesn't mean you shouldn't try. The only way to know how long it takes is to do it. That's why I suggest assigning 30 or 60-minute chunks of time for your big week wins instead of 19 minutes or 52 minutes. You don't need to be that precise. The third broken soundtrack that you might hear is surprises and emergencies in my week make it impossible to plan. Amen. 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 In the immortal words of Mike Tyson, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Let's be real. Life is going to punch you in the mouth. It is. If you want to be frustrated and disappointed, just try to plan out every one of your 168 hours this week. This week, for instance, I have a flight home. I'm supposed to land at like midnight on Wednesday, and it's a Southwest flight. And I'm already kind of watching like, ooh, is it going to get canceled? Like, what's going to happen? Like, I have no control over that. I have zero control over Southwest. And that's a big chunk of hours that I don't have control over. I mean, you're going to have some emergencies. There are going to be some surprises, unexpected obstacles, emergencies. That's just how life works. But here's the thing. There are less than you think. How do I know that? Because most people have never really paid attention to how many emergencies there are. We're so busy reacting and living in chaos that we never recognize that there are only a handful of surprises in every week. There's not 100. There's probably not even a dozen. For example, we got a flat tire the other day. One of our cars had a flat tire. That threw my schedule into a bit of a loop for a few hours. I hadn't planned to change the tire. It's also the first flat, though, that we've had in 3 years. It's not like I'm getting them every week. The other thing is that sometimes, like, things pretend to be emergencies that aren't really emergencies. If a coworker says, I need you to review this document ASAP, I need feedback ASAP, it's tempting to completely drop everything you're doing, throw your whole schedule into a tailspin, and spend time on that unexpected emergency. But what if instead you replied, I'm booked solid today, but I have a window open tomorrow at 2 p.m. Could I review it then and give you feedback by 4 p.m.? That level of detail would blow their mind. And chances are they don't need your feedback right this second. They're just living in their own chaos zone and they're trying to invite you in. I had somebody do that the other day. They were like, hey, John, I've had this idea for years. I need to talk to you this week. And I thought, if they've been working on it for years, they don't need to see me immediately. Like, you get, like, it's been in progress for 10 years and then you're like, here on this Tuesday is the Tuesday it has happened. Nah. So I scheduled it further out. Life is full of surprises, but there are less than you think. Do you want a fun, like, silly bit of homework? Count surprises this week. Just keep a running list in your phone. Like, take out your phone or your notebook. Count things that pop up unexpectedly in your week that cost you at least an hour of time. If you get a 10-minute phone call from a friend out of the blue, don't count that. No, don't count little things like that. I'm talking about an emergency or a surprise that takes at least 1 hour of your time. I promise you'll be shocked how few there really are. Do you want to take this to an even higher level of performance? When you encounter something unexpected, ask yourself 2 questions. And number 1, has this happened before? Number 2, will this happen again? If the answer is yes to either of those questions, then you need to build a system. I'll teach you how to do that in lesson 5. But for now, know this. If something happens repeatedly, it's not a surprise or an emergency. It's a situation begging for you to create a system to handle it. I learned that working with some of the best dental practices in the country. I speak at a lot of events for dentists. Every day at a dental office is full of unexpected situations. They can't plan, for instance, for like an 8th grader to chip his tooth on a baseball, or a crown to break, or a cavity to get unbearable for a patient. They can't plan that. You can't schedule emergencies, but the best dental practices have a plan for what to do when they happen. They have a system to accommodate the unexpected. They know how to shift patients, how to create space in the day, and how to get people in pain in immediately. They plan for the unplanned, and so can you. The 4th broken soundtrack that is common is, I don't have enough time. You don't. I don't know what to tell you. You don't. Neither do I. But when you keep an honest calendar, it teaches you that maybe you're trying to shove in too many things into 1 week. That sometimes happens to me. I come up with too many actions that I want to take, too many goals that I want to accomplish, too many things I want to do, too many commitments for 1 week. I don't know that, though, until I start assigning them hours. When I do that, I get a pretty quick education in time management from my calendar. Your calendar will teach you if you'll let it. It forces me, in the best possible way, to prioritize. I'm not naturally good at prioritizing, but the calendar gives me natural boundaries that I can use to my advantage. If I know it takes me 10 or so hours to do something, and I look at my calendar and I don't have them, then I have to be honest with myself and go, okay, I have to move some stuff around. Instead of feeling like a failure when I get to the end of the week and realize I didn't do that, at the beginning of the week, I allow the schedule to say, well, you've got 10 hours of writing schedule, but you've really only got 4 hours of time here, so it's not going to work. Self-discipline is hard. Calendar discipline is easy. The calendar just told me the truth. And now I have the choice to move that second goal into another week or pretend I can cram both in and believe another optimistic lie. Retire the broken soundtrack, I don't have enough time. Instead say, I have the perfect amount of time for the things that matter most. You do. You have enough time for the things that matter most. Scheduling your big week wins is the best way to turn optimistic lies into finished goals. And now we're at the 3rd step of the process. The first 2 happened before the week started. You identify your big week wins, and you create an honest calendar on a Sunday afternoon or a Monday morning before your week really kicks off. This third step, though, happens all week, which is why it's called Learn All Week. After I've scheduled all my big week wins and everything else I have going on, including personal things like eating lunch, picking up my kids from activities, dinner with friends, etc., I print out my calendar for the week. If you don't have a printer, print it out at work or ask a friend to print it for you today or buy a printer. I can't imagine living without a printer. Physically checking things off is so much better for me than just tapping something on my phone. You could do this digitally, I guess, but it's going to be a lot easier if you have a printout. I print out my schedule, and then during the week, I learn. Why? Why do I do that? Because I've made a guess at the beginning of the week, and I want to see how accurate I was. And how do I learn? I pay attention, and I use a marker. I write down the following on my calendar. Number one, my start time. I'm trying to get better at tracking my hours. So I write 8 a.m. or 7:45 a.m. on each day, depending on when I started working. Second thing I write, how many hours I worked. I don't want endless days. No one is making me keep a timesheet, but I know I'm more efficient when I do. Also, remember, one of my goals is to work 30 hours a week. How will I know I've hit that goal unless I'm tracking it? The third thing I write down is a plus sign. Put a plus sign if an action took me longer than I estimated. As I said before, I'm not great at estimating how long things take. So if I wrote down, I'm going to spend 30 minutes on this thing and it actually took 60, I put a plus sign. I also put number 4, a minus sign. Minus sign if an action took me less time than I estimated. Same principle as the plus sign. Every week I want to get a little bit better at estimating how long my actions took me. I want my calendar to be as honest as possible. Number 5, I write down a check sign by the actions I completed. I also cross them off on my mini whiteboard. Crossing things off you've accomplished is super satisfying. And I get to do it twice for each action. Nice. At the end of the week, I look at my big week wins and I move anything that's important that I didn't get done to the next week. Also, sometimes finishing one goal will inspire another. When I review a contract and provide feedback, the client might come back with another set of questions that I need to answer. So I cross off the initial action and I write a new one that goes on my list for the next week. What about actions that you need to do but aren't technically a big week wins? Well, I open up my notebook and I write daily lists at the top of a few pages, and then I keep a running list of things that I need to do that are smaller than a big week win, but are still important. So here are a few things that are on my daily list right now. Number 1, add not running sucks t-shirt to my Christmas list. I saw somebody wearing a shirt that said not running sucks. Thought, I want that shirt for Christmas. Put it on my list, daily list. Send MC the photo of me and Ian Cron. Ask Kathy Heller when she's launching her next course. Respond to Chandler Bolt text. Ask for a book signing event before the speech in Salt Lake City. 6, add Tony's chocolate to the holiday gift guide. Remember I talked about the holiday gift guide? Buy the book, The Plot from a local bookstore. Some of those are work-related. Some are personal. Some are completely frivolous. Some involve other people. They're all over the place, but I collect them. When I do finish a big week win, I get excited about it. It's fun. And if I don't finish it, I just move it forward and say, okay, let's keep moving this forward. And if I move it forward too many times, I'm going to remove it because it must not be important. But if I move it to the next week and I get it done, great, I actually finished it. Now, I need to clarify too that my calendar isn't overpacked. It probably sounds like it is. Like right now, maybe you're like, oh my gosh, this sounds like so much. It's not. I'm careful about leaving margin in there. I try to sometimes monetize and capitalize on every minute of my day. Like I get so focused, but I've learned that I do the best work when my calendar has some breathing room. Even though I'm aiming for efficiency, I still have gaps in the calendar. So I'm not just running from one project to the other. Margin matters. The goal of this third step, learning all week, is to get better for next week. The week is trying to teach you valuable lessons. Don't miss them. At the end of the week, do a quick 10-minute scan of the calendar printout. I tally my hours for the week to see how close I got to my 30-hour goal. I write down the total in big Sharpie, and then I throw that printout in a manila folder. At the end of the year, I'll binder clip them together and say, boom, this is my year. All in all, it should take you about 90 minutes in total for the entire week. Remember when I said I wanted a system that took less than 1% of my time each week? Well, there are 10,080 minutes in a week, so 90 minutes meets that goal. Now, it might take you a little longer the first couple of weeks, but eventually I think the time commitment breaks down like this. 30 minutes of planning, big week wins, scheduling 10 minutes per day of reviewing your calendar printout, business days only for a total like 50 minutes, 10-minute review at the end of the week. That's 90 minutes. And what you get back is hours and hours of full potential. The ROI, return on investment, is pretty amazing. And the more you do it, the more consistent you're going to become. The faster you'll climb that frequency ladder, and the sooner you'll stop spending so much time in the chaos zone. In a matter of weeks, you'll find yourself in the practice zone or maybe even the momentum zone. The big homework from today, because there's always homework, is that I want you to try this for at least 3 weeks. Why 3? Because 1 won't give you enough time to improve, and asking you to do it for the next 9 weeks or until the end of the year, that's overwhelming. So just try for 3. This Sunday or Monday. So the Sunday coming up, the Monday coming up, try the first 2 steps. Identify your big week wins, create an honest calendar. And then all week, learn from it. In our next lesson, I'm going to ask if you did. Okay? Cool. Now, I know there are going to be a lot of questions about this, which is why I can't wait to head to the VIP Backstage Access. If you're not in it yet, there's still time. Sign up at acuff.me/backstage. It's the best way to get all your questions answered, and it's really, really encouraging to be part of the community. The conversation that happens during the chat is amazing. All right, that's it for this week. We'll be back on October 29th at 12 p.m. Central. I'll actually be home. I'll be in my own space, not in a hotel room in Vegas, in a casino. So guys, thank you so much for watching today, and I'll see you in about 2 weeks. Have a great rest of your day. VIP, I'll see you in like 3 or 4 minutes. Let's take a quick break. I'm going to drink some water. I'll see you in a minute. Thanks, guys.